This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Lime Rock Park threw up a wildly different podium than what we've seen in previous races. In fact, for 2 of the 3, it was their first race of the season. But this theme of a lack of familiarity will continue because today features a track that is rarely used. Oran Park was a staple on the V8 Supercar schedule before its untimely demise a few years ago. But thanks to iRacing, it lives on. And today we get to dust off the covers as we get ready to watch round 5 of the Weekend Warriors. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacker. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beer. Steph, I'll be honest though, it doesn't offer much in the way of good side-by-side racing. This is easily one of my favorite tracks to drive on iRacing.
Now, this might be true, but it always so much depends on the cars you wheel around here. Located in Norrland, a suburb of Sydney, all you find here since 2010 is a nice neighborhood and park. Originally opened in February 1962, the track even hosted the Australian Grand Prix in 1974 and 1977. Before you're shocked, no, not the actual Formula 1 Australian Grand Prix, but the very popular Formula 5000 Australian Grand Prix. Leaving no time to stretch your legs or think about strategy, Oran Park is known for its intense wear onto drivers and cars. In total, 12 turns are located around the Oran Park Raceway facility. Drivers must face blind corners, fiat braking while turning, and quite some elevation change. But, as always, there's no better way to show you these challenges firsthand than a lap with our GSRC lap guide.
Alright, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Oran Park. The front stretch is pretty much the only long flat-out straight on the whole track, and while this will give you something of a slipstream and a chance to pass, the run through turn 1 is quick and single file. It blends directly into the braking for 2, where the car can wind up very unsteady. Expect a few pass attempts to go horribly wrong. From off of there, you fly under the bridge, cross sides, and then brake for 3. The curbs at the inside of a few of these corners are extremely tall and abrupt. Clip it and be ready to find the front end bouncing around everywhere. 4 is deceptive, with it being a bit off camber and a little blind. Figuring out just how much speed you can carry through will require some trial and error. Back up over the bridge, be ready to give a little lift on the throttle through 6, and then let it drift out to the left side of the track. Suddenly you'll plunge back down through 7 and 8, which with the speed you're carrying can often induce that infamous lift throttle oversteer. There's no time to relax because immediately you've got to set up for 9. It's another very blind turn that needs you to trust you've got back on the throttle at the right time. Then there's 10 and 11, which take you over a huge crest, requiring you to memorize just where the track is going because you can't see a thing. Finally, you reach what is possibly the most important corner of the lap, turn 12. This is more like something out of a street circuit with the way the outside wall is right against the edge of the track. But it's imperative that you find the throttle as soon as you can to get a good run down the pit straight, where hopefully you've now finished a lap around Oran Park. See just how blind some of those corners are from that lap guide, and that camera angle is even higher than what the drivers themselves can see. But as always, the Weekend Warriors is brought to you by Sim Stickers. Whether it's button boxes, steering wheels, or keyboards, they have you covered. You can find out more about them at simstickers.co.uk. See if they can help you out with a few products yourself if you're into sim racing and not just a spectator out here, but spectators who have been watching this season of the Weekend Warriors have been following along with the championship. So why don't we give you an update on the Spec 1 points first off. Up at the top, Daniel Sadro jumps ahead of David Gaspers. And if we look down, Jeff Jacobson up 2 points, but still 90 back from Sadro. Things are separating widely, but that is before their drop weeks have been included, so that could yet change around a lot. Elson drops 1, and Ian Haycox jumps up 2. So Spec 2 drivers having a very good season. Speaking of which, Stefan, why don't you fill us in on the top 5 in those Spec 2s?
Well, 2 of them you already saw. Jeff Jacobson, 3rd place overall, 1st in the Spec 2 Championship, but only 8 points between himself and Ian Haycox in 2nd place. Aaron Fergele, he is down in 3rd place. 4th goes to Alex Cofford, who lost a whopping 3 position from last round out. 35 points between him and Jeff Jacobson. A very interesting thing is, Alex Cofford, 7th overall in championship. He's only 29 points behind Steve Elson, who is sitting 3rd place overall. 5th place, a little bit further down, Bob Kern. He was leading this championship at one point, quite some ways back already. 11th overall, 5th in the Spec 2 Championship.
Yeah, Bob Kern is here today, so we'll see if he has a little bit of a better race out here in Australia. This race itself, though, as I mentioned, is round 5. And you can see there's those 3 droplets for those 3 drop weeks. Their worst results will be eliminated from their points count as the season goes by. The race distance today is their sprint format, 40 minutes, and there will be 1 stop for fuel scheduled because they have limited the fuel cells compared to the real cars. Now, that'll be a talking point. We'll go over that in a little bit. They ration the points, which is a bit unique in this series. So 100 always goes to the winner, but then last place always gets 25, no matter how many cars show up, so that it isn't dependent on attendance. They have incident penalties, not -3 points for every 10 incidents they get out on track. So you can't be disqualified, but it'll certainly hurt your championship hopes if you're fighting for points out there. They have 1 spare car to get them to the finish of this race. And as always, you're watching this once again on the iRacing Esports Network. If you have not subscribed to the channel, if you go to their YouTube page, you'll notice that there is a big red button. It'll say subscribe. All you got to do is click that, and you'll get the Weekend Warriors in your YouTube feed each and every week they race. So we're watching qualifying currently, and provisionally David Gaspers is your pole sitter, about 2.5 tenths ahead of Kane Halliburton, so it's not terribly close up there. Usually Kane gives him a little bit more trouble. But let's talk about that pit entry here, Steph, because at least these cars are very small, so it won't be as problematic as some of the larger vehicles that race here. But I have to admit, I myself have had a few problems trying to get in.
Yeah, it always surprises me what they raced here. Like, even trucks raced here. And I'm not talking here about what the Americans call the pickups. No, we're actually talking here about the big trucks, lorries as they're called in Great Britain. And somehow even they fitted into that pit entrance. Don't ask me how, but they did. But because of this pit entrance and how small the pit lane itself is in width, it actually is a very slow pit lane with only 50 kilometers an hour. So it is gonna be interesting. What's much more interesting is that pit exit, because you have that big sausage curb dividing the racing line and the pit exit. And I'm not gonna lie, the first time I did exit the pit lane here, I drove over that sausage curb and I was wondering what the heck just happened.
Yeah, I think it's probably best to wait. Ed Doherty gonna have to wait to get his car back out on track as he spun into the tires there. We'll now switch over to Brian Short, sitting in 10th in qualifying. Now, if you're just joining us for the first time in the Weekend Warriors and wondering, how do I tell the Spec 2 from the Spec 1? Because, well, they're all the same car out there. If you watch the car numbers, the 200 cars, like we see with Aaron Vagley, he is a Spec 2. So any of the 200 numbered cars are the amateur category. Below that, they are considered the Spec 1, the pro category, which is where you find all the hot shoes typically. But we've seen lately in the past few seasons, some of those Spec 2 drivers have proven very fast, as we can tell by the points. Gary Wobolt is currently the last car on the track to have a time on the board at a 1:19.4. Just waiting for Ryan Walker and Bogdan Dumitrescu to get out there. Well, they're out there, but they haven't logged a time yet.
No, they have not. And Gary, why? What? Ryan Walker. We have seen it quite a few times from him already that he did not put in a lap time, or only did put himself into the last few rows here, but always has a great race, so we might see something still from him. Meanwhile, Dave Gaspers still circling around, still in first place, but only by a 10th.
So for the fourth time out of 5 races, this is a talking point that we've been dealing with as David Gasper has abandoned that lap. Is once again, we've got a very, very short track length, just over 1.5 miles and a minute and a quarter for a lap time. So I have to ask, is lap traffic going to be an issue?
I don't want to be mean, but this track bites. So if you're really not on your toes and you're struggling with the car on itself already, I think you're not gonna finish the race as Nico Schuk just demonstrated that for myself as he rolled himself out of the last turn. But if you're struggling with the car, you're gonna struggle even harder here, especially with those blind corners, with especially that midsection, that fast one you have where Sidra is gonna come out. You're gonna be dropped into that right-hander right now. It actually is a drop. You're gonna feel how the car is gonna go light out, suddenly squats back in, and that's really what this car doesn't like. So if you're struggling with it, you're gonna struggle even more, and you might be over your limit here today.
So you're saying you're expecting we'll see probably more of an attrition problem than a lap traffic problem?
Probably.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on that. 6th for Michael Shaw, about 0.8 of a second off of our pole sitter. And Halliburton, by the way, did get closer to Gaspers, but did not manage to go faster. 9/100ths of a second off of David. And I think he's got time for just about 2 more laps. Jerry McAreevy comes across. And where is Jerry, actually? He is lost his position in our timing sheet, so we've switched over to Bogdan, who does get a time in now, and Bogdan goes to 18th position.
McAreevy is now going through turns 2 and 3. Still sitting in 9th place with a 15.548 as Michael Shaw climbs his way through the last turn. Currently sitting in 6th place. Let's see what he can do.
Actually, I really like that last turn. I like the fact that it has that sort of street course vibe with the wall right at the edge of it and that climb through at the blind exit. I don't know, something about it just always feels fun to me. C Love is going to come around and tackle that. As you can see him coming over the crest. He's currently in 14th. Let's see if he's got a good one going. No, did not count. Must have had an off somewhere.
Believe it or not, but I once messed up that last turn so hard that I climbed that wall and found myself.
And Halliburton just took pole away from Gaspers. Gaspers is still outrunning. And last time around, that one didn't count, but he's got enough time for one more go to try and retake the top spot, Steph.
Yeah, and it's only about 400th of a second between himself and Kane Halliburton, so it's not the end of the world for that battle for his pole position, but still, that might be quite a tough climb to do.
What's fascinating is I just noticed that Jose Soria, who was complaining in practice about how much he struggled at this track, is actually half a second behind. The reason I bring that up is Jose's in 3rd. So you've got the 2 front runners as we're riding on board with Gaspers. He's going to go past Halliburton, who just spun. So Halliburton's done with his qualifying. The top 2, who are incredibly close together, and then there's essentially everybody else behind them. So David Gaspers will not have to worry about Halliburton increasing that gap. The checkered flag now comes out. He weaves his way through the final chicane. The last turn of turn 12, climbing up and over the hill. What does he have underneath him? His best of 1:14.555. Only needs a little bit better.
Got him.
He did it. Wow.
0.027 of a second. That is, in other terms, nothing.
Incredibly close. We could be in for a stunner, especially with how hard it is to pass around here. Looking to see who else is coming across to finish their hot laps. Brian Short, I believe, going to be the next one. He sits in 11th position. And he comes around. He's got a best of 1:16 flat underneath him. This lap is not going to count. He must have had an off that last time through. Jose Soria. Let's see if he can get closer than that. Half a second behind. Looks like no, not going to be any faster on the last lap.
And a Bradshaw over the line, 16.212, not faster than his 12th place lap. And Bob Kern, last car, he is pitting in.
That should be it. That's the last of our field in qualifying. So the grid is now set. Let's go through your starting order. David Gaspers will be on the pole with Kane Halliburton in P2. Jose Soria, can he hold it together all race long? He's got good one-lap pace with third. Jason Perry will be on the outside of him in fourth. Daniel Sadro starting P5 with Michael Shaw in the sixth position. Edward Doherty in P7, and our pole sitter on the Spec 2 field. Ian Haycox will be 8th. The next driver on the Spec 2 field with Jerry McAree back in the Spec 1s in P9. C. Love will round out your top 10.
Brian Short, number 550 in 11th place. Alongside him will be Adam Bradshaw. Rounding out row 7 will be Aaron Frigley and Jeff Jacobson. 15th place went to Nico Schuk, and Bob Kern put himself into 16th. 17th went to Giulio Forsolin, Bogdan M. Duratin in Dumitrescu, in 18th, Gary Walpole 19th, and last car to take the green flag here today is the number 4 of Ryan Walker.
Yep, Walker, the only driver not to manage to get a lap in. And we have a short pace lap, just half a pace lap around here before we get going green. Actually, I think less than that, because I do believe they start just before the final chicane.
It's about 1/3 of the lap, which honestly I never got why this is a short pace lap.
Yeah, of all the tracks.
It's a 2.6 kilometer track. Why does this have a short pace lap?
They need to do that to Road America someday, maybe eventually for iRacing. As the last of the cars grid up, we're just waiting on a few of them. What are we going to be in store for here for round 5 of the Weekend Warriors, presented by Sim Stickers? Is this going to be a case of follow the leader? Is it going to be fierce battling, or will it be the last man to survive and get to the line? As we heard Steph talk about the attrition possibly being a problem. I know when I had my race earlier this week, I certainly had my fair share of errors costing me time out on track. Just waiting for Bogdan Dumitrescu. He pops out there. Now he has his setup in the car. So with that, we should see the Porsche pace car take off any moment now and lead the way, with David Gaspers being given control soon. Now it takes off. Kane Halliburton. We saw him in the very first round at Poconos road course. Managed to overthrow David Gaspers and beat him to the checkers. Can he do it again now that he's shown up once more? Coming up and around the final corner. Porsche pace car heads off to the right. And we're getting the green flag before the pace car's even in the pit lane. And away we go. Gaspers did not get the greatest of starts. In fact, Kane Halliburton still right beside him. They're going to be heading at a fair head of steam through the first corner. This left-hand kink, this could be perilous, as a few cars are looking 3 wide. Everybody starts to cycle down to 2 wide and 1 wide. So far, not seeing any spinners, and I think we are good.
We are indeed very good through the first set of turns. It is 3 turns in total here, as the first side-by-side is between Nico Schuk, or was between Nico Schuk and Bob Kern. That settled in favor of Nico Schuk, who took himself away at 15th place.
Up and over the bridge, through turn 6, and now the sweeping corners of 7 and 8. Already David Gaspers starting to pull away a little bit from Kane Halliburton. Jason Perry's managed to move into third. And Michael Shaw, oh, we got a spinner back there. Ed Doherty.
Doherty, what happened to him as we go on to replay for that?
This is a surprisingly tricky corner. Another one of those blind ones.
Yeah, it just seems like he was just a little bit too hard on the throttle there and just spins himself out, or maybe a little bit too hard on the brake actually, as his car did squat quite a bit down there. Either way, he spins himself around and is back to last.
And just jumps up to second to last as we come back live, but we're looking at the leaders. So we got a battle behind them. This is between Michael Shaw and Jose Soria. Jose lost spots at the start of the race. He's trying to clamber back forward, and he gets P4 with that move into turn 3.
Look at Kane Halliburton though. He is stalking the rear of David Gaspers for that first place, as Gaspers once again drops the left side of the tires into the grass there. Really? It seems like Gaspers is feeling that pressure a little bit.
Absolutely. Kane has regrouped and has gotten right to the gearbox of the number 23.
Oh, Love. Oh, Bradshaw spins, Schuk spins, as Love had also a moment there.
A number of cars involved. And actually with 3 separate incidents, I believe, because Bradshaw was in front of them. See, Love had an issue, and that maybe had something to do with Nico Schuk, who spun off. The driver who took most advantage of it, that red and white machine you saw flash by, that was Bob Kern, finally finding a little bit of luck on his side.
Yeah, most definitely, as Adam Bradshaw, as we're on board with Nico Schuk now, who, yeah, he was braking there a little bit for Love. And Adam Bradshaw, he was caught out there by that curb on the exit, because it has a little bit of concrete added behind the curb, and that actually is off-cambered to the track. And if you hit that too much, like he did, as Ian Haycock's just spun out before the bridge, if you hit that too much, you actually bottom out on that curb, and like Doherty did, you're gonna spin out.
We're having a lot of drivers with problems. Nico Schuk had a spin. We don't need to go to it. Adam Bradshaw had another off. Meanwhile, let's stay on the leaders, because we could yet see Halliburton make an attempt on Gaspers at some point. If they start to battle, look behind them. That white number 97, that is Jason Perry, still running in third and keeping himself in touch, even if he's not a threat currently.
Bob Kern right now under pressure for that 8th place. Sealump goes to the inside in that turn 1. Backs out though. So Bob Kern stays right now in 8th place.
Some great action here at the start. And again, it's a 40-minute race, so those 35 minutes you see left, that is pretty much the vast majority of it left to go. As our leaders cross over the bridge, up and over the other cars underneath them. Something about that just, I don't know, any of the crossover tracks always excite the little kid in me that always wanted that.
Who needs bridge in Silverstone when you have this bridge here? As Kane Halliburton, you saw it there. Very lucky not to spin out. It was all crossed up on his wheel to save that one. Yeah, who needs bridge turn in Silverstone when you have this bridge here? Or Suzuka.
Yeah, exactly. Another crossover track. But look back there. The 97, as soon as I started hyping him up, dropped off a little more from Kane Halliburton and David Gaspers that lap. So they've picked the pace up. Perry is starting to struggle a little bit. That's Soria still stalking him, trying to take the position away. Oof. locking up the tires as they struggle to try to get the car wound up into turn 2. Michael Shaw, because of that, gets awful close to the back of the 25.
Yeah, and this is a 3-4 car battle for that third place, as Jason Perry now is able to get a little bit away from Soria. But yeah, it seems like a little bit of an accordion effect that one time Jason is faster, one time, or the next time, the guys behind are faster than him. So it seems like that keeps being together, but that gap ahead is growing already up to nearly 2 seconds.
What surprises me is that Sadro's at the back of this train in P6. Oh, it might not be for long, as we saw a mistake from Michael Shaw. Not sure that Sadro has anywhere to go. And indeed, he's got to stay back there. Maybe he could get the launch off the final corner. They both take it all the way out to that outside wall, and he's going to get a little hint of the slipstream. He's given the inside as Shaw does not protect it. He stays on the racing line. Sadro now back up to where he started this race in P5.
Not gonna lie, I was waiting to jump in there because Kane Halliburton also was side by side with Gaspers. However, Kane Halliburton was on the outside for that second turn, so he had to stick his nose back in behind the rear of David Gaspers, and nothing happens. They still stay first and second.
Yeah, battle for the lead, definitely an important one we got to keep an eye on. There you see the two of them still separated by less than half a second, and they've gapped Jason Perry now to 2.7 behind. So the rest of the field, really no concern for these two. It is down to a 2-horse race for the race win here today at Oran Park.
A few laps ago, actually 1 lap ago, Edward Doherty had a big coming together with Bogdan Dimitrescu. Dimitrescu actually getting into a roll there. Hard contact between the two, and Doherty has some damage now. Doherty still racing in 15th, but Dimitrescu opted to park his car for today.
We saw on screen Bob Kern having to get back onto the track. He had a spin in 7 and 8 and returns in 12th. So he may have gained a couple a little bit earlier by others' misfortune, but now he's on the opposite end of the coin.
Yeah, and up front, Jason Perry did get caught again by Jose Soria. So, as I said, that battle for P3 is again a 4-car train, as Michael Shaw is a little bit dropping off of that now.
As they work their way down through 7 and 8, based on the color scheme on Soria, knowing he is Club Iberia, I'm going to take a stab that he's Spanish and not Portuguese. I know my flags well enough to at least recognize those colors on the 25 car.
Or maybe he's a Spaniard racing out of Portugal.
That could be, that's true. But he's right now trying to race with the UK&I driver, Jason Perry. Spider-Man didn't get the best of exits off the final corner. Soria now looking to the inside. They're going to be side by side unless someone gives way into the first corner, and it's going to be Jason Perry who loses out on that game of chicken. In fact, he might lose out another spot. Sadro almost stuck his nose in, but backed out of it.
That was a yes, no, maybe move there by Sadro, but he was able to pull it out again, thankfully, and he did not collide with Jason Perry or did try something stupid. By the way, one country they always forget that is also an up area. It is Andorra. They might also be racing out of there.
This is true. This is true. We'll have to ask him if he comes in and talks to us, but our leaders, who we're likely to hear from at least one of them after this is done based on their pace, are still going at it, and Halliburton now within about a car length. It's a short braking zone into this uphill left-hander, so no opportunity quite there this time for Kane Halliburton. Oh, look at the run that he gets, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to be covered off because he managed to get beside him before David Gaspers could get down to the inside. Gaspers swings back out to the racing line. Can he hold him off the long way around? Too wide through turn one. Nobody giving way. Still to the inside. Kane Halliburton manages to find the apex. He's given space by David Gaspers. Both drivers still wheel to wheel. They almost bang wheels, in fact, and it finally switches back to a right-hander. David Gaspers pulls ahead a little bit and cuts in front and over under potentially from Halliburton. He looks to the inside but backs out by turn 4.
Yeah, undercut really not preferable through that turn, as that is a little bit of a weird one because he got dropped into quite some heavy banking there for that right-hander. But nonetheless, very great and respectable driving by both of them, as David Gaspers jumps the curbs there a little bit, and Edward Doherty is once again into pit lane with a very damaged car.
I'm starting to think that Halliburton's got Gaspers a little shook here. They come down into the last corner. This is where it started last time, and it took him 3 corners to settle it out. This time, Gaspers can easily head down to the inside to keep him from taking that inside line. Kane knows it. He moves to the outside. So it's going to be a reverse of what we saw as they go by Ed Doherty, still side by side. This time, Kane Halliburton a little bit farther back than what we saw from David Gaspers, and because of that, Gaspers has it done by turn 2. He successfully defends his lead.
And we also already have our first pit stopper, scheduled pit stopper that is, Michael Shaw in the pit lane. He is there for his required amount of fuel.
Black and green number 55, in and out in around 8 seconds, and he is on his way. No sign of the lap traffic yet for these two. We hop on board with Kane Halliburton. Look at the counter steering as he uses all the track and then some, and Soria's had a problem.
Yeah, what happened to him? He was in 3rd place, very slow right now.
Turn 8, I think.
Seems like it was the fast S. Let's have a look. Right-hander all perfect, and a left-hander gets it all wrong and then spins it out on the racing line. Jason Perry. Whoa, that was close.
We need an
Daniel
onboard with
Sadro.
either Perry or Sadro here. This is heart in your throat stuff. Whoa. I think he even took a little grass on the entry into 9 and still made the corner.
I probably would have stuffed it into the wall there.
Same. Same. So, Jason Perry kept it together. Daniel Sadro kept it together, and they live to fight for P3. Without Soria in the mix, he's lost about 7 seconds with that spin that he made last lap.
Now the interesting part will be how much faster is Soria? Can he catch up back to them? Or is it now a lost cause for him as Kane Halliburton super wide out of turn 9? Woo! On the grass a little bit sideways even to there. Keeps it together and loses no stride to Gaspers as we take you onto that replay.
He was already a little wide too on his way through turn 8. Almost had the same moment that Soria did. Woo! Goes for a ride. What do you think, Steph? Is he pushing harder to try and see where he can find an advantage over Gaspers, or what's going on there?
Gaspers spins, keeps it together there. But I'm honestly not sure if it's really that much of pushing or just a little bit missing out on his turning point because he was already wide through turn 8, and because of that completely misses the turn because it's also a very blind turn. So there might be a few more factors than just pushing that little bit too much.
He continues to apply pressure on our leader, David Gaspers. See if he's a little smoother this time through. Took a little bit of grass through 8.
Meanwhile, Bob Kern into pit lane, and next scheduled pit stop of the day.
That'll easily move Shaw in front of him. Oh, look at how close Halliburton's getting, but once again, doesn't want to try and make a move in this final left-hander. Swinging off the corner, immediately taking down to the left side of the track. David Gaspers covering off Kane Halliburton. but he might actually be fully ahead by the time. Oh, and they almost come together. They separate as quickly as they can, still wheel to wheel as they break for 1 and 2. The inside goes to Gaspers. And could we see Kane Halliburton carry enough momentum? He's almost alongside, but I'm not sure that he's quite close enough, and he thinks so too. He finally ducks back to the racing line.
Nico Schuk, the first car that they are gonna lap, it's not far ahead of them, only now going into turn 7.
Oh, and Soria is definitely not going to catch our 3rd and 4th place drivers. Not when he messes up turn 2 this way.
Ooh, that's gonna be interesting, that right?
That looks like just too much inside curb, which is
Yeah.
frankly any curb that you take there.
One thing we have to mention, it's a little bit of a weird curve because it's the middle of the curve is actually much deeper than the outside, so it is kind of like a reversed curve, if you see what I mean. Oh, sorry, it crashes again. Oh, this time hard into the wall.
We'll have to look at that replay in a moment because Halliburton's being given the inside by Gaspers. We've seen this once before, and Gaspers managed to come away with it, but not when we see a mistake from Kane Halliburton, who outbrakes himself.
Actually, through turn 1, through that left-hand kink, you had 2 tires on the grass and over the curb because of that. And because of exactly that, he lost control of his car, locks the brakes to not run into Gaspers on the outside. Very great awareness by him.
Let's see what happened to Soria, who's since come into the pit lane. Not sure if he drove it there or if he towed it.
He drove it there, and that is going to be one heck of a ride for him. As we're now going through.
Car out of shape. Oh, he almost saved it. He almost kept it out of the wall, but then a second bobble, unfortunately, looks like put him back into it with a hard hit on the right side. Hence why he came in. Probably, well, I thought he would take, yeah, it looks like he took his spare car and just took fuel.
Kane Halliburton, we missed something as his car is completely done on the right side.
Let's see if we can figure out what happened
Out of
here.
turn 9, actually through the S of turn 7, turn 8, it happened once again, turn 8 way too wide, and yeah, wasn't able to save that.
Ooh, he pancakes it. Yeah, you'll see it starts here. Boy, this is becoming a bit of a theme. The drivers start with a problem in 7 and 8, and then through 9, it finishes up. You can see flattens the right side. Yeah, I thought he was unusually far behind.
Yeah. With that, the battle for P1 might be over, but the battle for P10 is completely on. That is between Jeff Jacobson, Adam Branch, and Aaron Fögele. Actually, Michael Shaw also in that one, but remember, he already did pit.
Also, I can report that Ryan Walker just took P5 away from Ian Haycox. And Haycox currently is our Spec 2 leader down there in 6th place, so he shouldn't be too terribly worried about losing out to Walker. He's got 7 seconds back to see Love behind him, who is second in the Spec 2 race.
Yeah, very good for him right now. Give up that 1 place, but gain that advantage over C Love. Meanwhile, no advantage given whatsoever in this battle for P10.
Oh,
As Haycox
into the valley, and this will give C Love the lead now.
done so many times through this last turn, turn 12 uphill. Only a very small curb on the inside, and the grass completely drops away from it. It's actually used quite often in normal cars, but in these very low to the ground cars, it's not a very good idea, like Ian Haycox showed.
And Kane Halliburton just spun. Kane Halliburton, who you see on screen right now, coming out of turn 2 just ahead of Haycox. Lost the car on his own, I'm pretty sure.
I think so, yeah. Yep.
Curb again.
Always that curb. Oh, Bradshaw loses it right in front of Gule. Woo.
Coming back live. There you see Bradshaw returning to the track after spinning it out of turn 4. He winds up in 12th place after that recovery. Looks like it started with a bit of a battle going on.
And this is sadly the attrition that I was talking about, because as we said in the pre-race, this track is so relentless. There are no straights really long, or that front stretch isn't long enough to really stretch your legs, to really get composed again for that next lap. It always is turn after turn after turn, and that pounds, and that is gonna take its toll after some laps, like we see now. Those mistakes be more and more.
This will definitely easily allow Gaspers to take a win, but those mistakes that you talked about, it doesn't mean that the number 23 can completely avoid them himself. As Nico Schuk is going to come on in. His very happy and pleasant car, going to take a delightful amount of fuel. Oh, David Gaspers blew his engine. David Gaspers has blown his engine. And I think it was on an upshift where he must have an H pattern where he accidentally shifted down because it was on the straightaway.
Yep, he shifted from 4th into 3rd in that. David Gaspers, please sue Joe Peak, that is, for cheating your race. But well, David Gaspers,
he's still going. He could come in for a spare car. I believe that replaces the engine as well.
Yes, it does. Well, it is a Spec race of Ford after all, and yeah, Ford always continues to drive.
Poor Colin's going to have to use a few tear-offs this lap. Getting a face full of smoke from Gaspers here, who is going to limp his way to the pits. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I was going to say, you better go into the pits, buddy.
You think for Colin is smelling what Gaspers is cooking?
Thought you were going to ask if they've got smell vision in VR now or something, which that could be a double-edged sword for racing. In the meantime, Halliburton does not inherit the lead. Jason Perry does, and he's still being hounded by Sadro, but both of these drivers still need to take their pit stop.
And Sea Love has just disconnected, so something happened to Sea Love here. I'm gonna try to find out for you what happened there, and he just parked his car in pit lane and was done with it.
Well, you're working on that. I'm keeping an eye on Gaspers and Halliburton, and Gaspers must have not damaged the engine too badly because he managed to putter around and still stay ahead of Halliburton by a fair amount. Now, Halliburton did have at least 2 spins and some damage on his car from contact with the wall. So that could explain why he is still well behind David. Crisis potentially averted.
While we were watching David Gaspers driving around into pit lane, Edward Doherty behind him slipped on his...
Sorry, we almost had a pass for the lead on screen. Sadro was taking a look. Go ahead.
Doherty slipped on his oil out of last turn, collected the outside wall, and then also collected quite spectacularly, I have to add, Jeff Jacobson, who got sent into a double barrel roll, pretty much a corkscrew actually, managed to get his car going again, drive into pit lane. That is his race done because he was already in his second car.
You should know not to tap R twice. Regardless, continuing to watch this battle of about 0.3, 2/10 separation between Perry and Sadro. Sadro has been stuck behind him for a number of laps. A little mistake from Perry coming through 7 and 8 doesn't produce anything for Daniel. I almost feel like the 51 needs to hop into the pits, get his stop out of the way, and get out from behind Spider-Man.
Yeah, it does seem like Sadra is getting held up by Chase and Perry. Let's see if anyone pits in. And no, they do not. And by the way, the story of the race, Ryan Walker. From 20th, because of pit stops, he is up to 3rd place.
Driver who didn't take a qualifying time, started at the back and has made good on some incredible race pace at a track where it is extremely hard to overtake. He's going to call it time for pits. So let's see where that cycles him out. David Gaspers is our highest pitter for now.
I think he should be coming out around Bob Kern.
No, Kern is already a lap down. I think Walker should be out before then.
Oh yeah, Kern, yeah. Fergulate goes past, that was 8th place. Walker goes out now. Soria's coming around, that's P11. That's not gonna happen for him either, as the pit lane just extremely slow, as already mentioned. Jason Perry is gonna come around once again through the last turn, and it seems like Perry's putting him alongside Daniel No, neither is putting him.
Still going long. Both of these drivers, I guess at least one of them is in clean air. Sadro's trying to find some clean air. This time he's got a good run, though, and Perry backs out of it.
I'm not gonna lie, this looked like both wanted to pit in and both decided, no, I'm not, because the other one is pitting.
They both stayed out, and it worked out to Sadro's advantage as he finally managed to get himself into P1. Now, we don't believe they should be able to jump Gaspers in the pit stops. He lost time, but I don't think he lost enough to be jumped by these two. We ride on board with Spider-Man looking up ahead. We're at 12 minutes left. We should see, if not this time, I want to say next time by for the pit stop for these two.
I'm pretty sure this is the last lap worth of fuel here. But it will not be the first time that commentator got proven wrong.
Yeah, especially on fuel. One thing we can't really tell on these cars. Sadro comes out the final corner. No.
Stays out.
Once again.
Where's Gaspers?
We're only waiting on these two, Haycox and Vaguely, to come in for their stops. Everybody else has been in and out.
Gaspers right now going up to the last turn. So, yeah, most definitely Gaspers will take over the lead, but it is actually not all that far.
Yeah,
right
I would
now
imagine.
Between Sadro and Gaspers.
Yeah, I would imagine they would have gained a little bit.
Sadro spins once again.
Oh, man. It has been a bad day. And
7 and 8.
The same corner through 7 and 8, yeah.
Haycox into pit lane. That now leaves only Vögele, Perry, and Sadro yet to pit.
And if I'm not mistaken, does that give the Spec 2 lead to Vaguely? Yeah, it does.
It most definitely does.
Did have a spin recently, and he accrued some damage on the left rear in the process.
That damage is
Spider-Man's
actually quite old already on Vögele. I think he picked it up like lap 2 or so.
Jason, who was in second, comes into the pits, but Daniel Sadro keeps going.
A split strategy. Where is Gaspers? Gaspers coming up to turn 12 now. So obviously he's gonna jump Jason Perry.
Yeah, this should definitely allow him through.
Kane Halliburton not all too far behind. Gaspers only 8 seconds, so that's also not gonna happen for Perry.
I don't know. I think he's actually going to come out right with him. Nope, you were right. There he goes on by. That pit exit takes a little bit to get to, so he slots into 4th as he avoids the tire smoke of Adam Bradshaw locking it up in front of him. Adam is a lap down, so that's not for position.
All right, let's have a look. Daniel Sadro, he is now coming up at the last turn. Let's see, does he have to go into pit lane this time?
Wow.
That's a most definite no. So one more lap, it is ready.
Lesson learned, don't hire GSRC commentators to be your crew chief for fuel.
Unless you actually give us your fuel numbers, then you can hire us.
The 51 keeps going, and he's not alone. Aaron Vagley is still out there in 7th place without a pit stop having taken place yet for him. These stops run at about 9 to 11 seconds long, typically, between these drivers. The shortest so far today, though, 8.8 I'm seeing from Michael Shaw.
And before mentioned Aaron Vagley just spun out of the last turn.
Yes, he did. So, he's behind the track. Dougie didn't really plan for drivers to be down in that portion. Usually they're not. And he comes in, so he's done with this fuel stint.
You know, in Australia they have a raceway called Hidden Valley Raceway, but that is not here. That is actually quite a ways away in Darwin.
Do they serve salads there?
No.
Oh. It would be appropriate. Anyways, Daniel Sadro comes in with 8 minutes left to go, stretching it as far as possible. This should hand the lead back to Gaspers, who, once he's in front of him, will have the gap to P2 about by 6.5 seconds. Now, where is Perry? Because he was the one fighting with Sadro. There he is coming out of the final corner. Sadro's out of his stall.
This might actually be close with Halliburton now. As here comes Halliburton side by side into second turn. Halliburton has got him though.
Sadro, though, in for a very, very short stop. Our quickest stop yet at an 8.1 for the number 51. And that is what allowed him to jump Perry by so much, almost 6 seconds between them, as well as catch up to Halliburton now, only 2/10. It is a battle for best of the rest.
And also, in case you're wondering, where the heck is a Darwin, mate? Well, Darwin is in the top north of Australia, right in the middle. Quite a nice city as well.
I was going to say, I thought he was buried somewhere in England. Jokes, folks, jokes.
Moving on from that.
Daniel Sadro, you know, it's interesting about Daniel Sadro. He almost reminds me of a bit Dixon-esque, the way he runs his championships and his races. He's not the most spectacular driver we've ever seen, but he is indomitable. You cannot put this guy down. You look at where he started this race in 5th, and yet out of everything, he just creeped his way forward to a podium and possibly a 2nd place.
Out of the top 4, he's the only guy to actually change his position. Gaspers, Halliburton, and Perry all started in 1st, 2nd, and 4th, respectively. Michael Shaw, he's also gained 1 position from 6th up to 5th, and Ryan Walker, after his pit stop, still in 7th place, plus 13 positions.
Our leader in the Spec 2 currently is Ian Haycox. He's got about 11 seconds over the next Spec 2 driver, Brian Short. Granted, I need to double check to see if Short is Spec 2 because I don't think we have a Spec 5 for the number 550 car.
If I remember correctly, the cutoff is 2.5k.
I believe you're right.
Which means he would be a Spec 2 driver because he's sitting at 2.3k hours.
Meanwhile, we're riding on board with Soria, who is ahead of Haycox. Having trouble with turn 4, and enough trouble that Haycox is going to pounce on him, get to the inside of turn 6, and squeak through. That moves Ian up to 8th position now. Soria's fast, but looks like he needs to work on consistency, at least at this track.
And meanwhile that happened, Kane Halliburton put in a new fastest lap of the race of 14.255. Now down to about 4.5 seconds between himself and Gaspers. But with about 4 laps to go, that is pretty much a too tall order to make up those 4 seconds over Dave Gaspers.
Yep, Halliburton left Sadro coughing in his Australian dust and just dropped him like a rock as Kane tries to go after Gaspers. But you say about it being a tall order, we've seen mistakes are incredibly easy to make. We come back to the battle now with Ian Haycox. Speaking of mistakes, way off into what is usually the kart pits off there out of turn 3. Jose Soria comes back to the track without losing much time since he found some pavement, even though I don't think it was part of the official track.
I think you don't even get an off-track for that because it is paved.
Ooh, and off at the side of the track, that was Gary Woolbolt. He's just a lap down car. Actually, he's the last one left running. Giving him a little bit of screen time. Our director is a very kind soul.
After all, he did gain 3 positions.
This is true. Gained positions are positions, no matter how. On the front stretch, we might want to go back to our leader in the Spec 2, because Haycox is being threatened by Soria as he goes to the inside, down into turn 1. Haycox doesn't fight it. He stays out of it, but off into the gravel. There goes Jose Soria. I think he is going to be happy to see the other side of this circuit and pack up and head to the next race.
Other side of the track? Why are we in England next track?
Next track is going to be Okayama. So just hopping up to Japan.
Technically the other side of the track. Okay, I give it to you.
2.5 minutes left to go. And I don't think we're going to get... Actually, no, we might get the white flag this time by. Because Gaspers has just started his most recent lap. He's coming through turn 4 up the hill towards the crossover. Wow. Very, very good lap. Actually very bad lap on lap 27. Must have had an off or maybe some lap traffic.
Neither. Kane Halliburton just is that much faster right now as he takes an interesting line through turn 9.
And we're going to get 2 laps to go this time as we ride on board with Kane Halliburton, because Gaspers just crossed, and the laps at 1 minute and 14:15 mean that he should be able to come around before we see the checkers. Don't really have too many battles left here at the end. It is all about trying to reduce these mistakes, as many have made them, and try to take it to the finish.
Now, one thing we have to say, without the spin that Kane Halliburton had, he might actually be right now in front of David Gaspers. So I think Kane is gonna look with a sad eye and a happy eye back to this race.
Certainly seems to have had pace, just unfortunately couldn't deal with the bumps and the swings and the turns of this very difficult track. May it rest in track heaven. The clock now coming down to less than a minute as David Gaspers and Soria, I think, has been put out of his misery.
That is a very heavy damage car. Is he interesting?
Oh, he clipped the wall, I think. Yeah, it clipped the wall and it sent him into the pit entry barrier, and that flipped him over.
Yeah, he gave up here. You're gonna see it. He gave up a little bit here on actually trying to drive away from the barrier. And because of that, he gets a little bit of a nudge on his right rear when the barrier swings to right. to open up for the pit entrance, and right into the tire barriers he goes.
The number 23 has already crossed the line for the white flag. He just lapped the car of Gary Wobolt and has clear track all in front of him. Kane Halliburton, despite closing it in to 2.8 seconds, even if he caught him, you have to wonder if he would have been able to get by with the way these two had to fight for it. Now up towards the final chicane, over the blind crest, into the last turn 12. David Gaspers managed to get the pole away at the very last moment, but in the race, he was the much cleaner driver, and he wins here at Oran Park.
Kane Halliburton in second place with the fastest lap of the race of 14.058. In that last attempt, third place went to Daniel Sadro.
Jason Perry, now that he had separated from Sadro, was never able to re-catch him. He winds up P4. Shaw with an excellent fifth place. See Jerry McAreevy coming in sixth position. Ian Haycox is still our lead driver in the Spec 2, and he's coming around turn 9 right now. In fact, he will be our winner because Brian Short, unless something incredibly drastic happens to Ian Haycox, he won't be able to be caught. And Brian is the only other driver on the lead lap. So this is it as they cross the line. A little spin in the background from Julio Forcolin. So Haycox, your winner in Spec 2, Short second place for that. We're going to head away for just a moment as we take a break to catch our breath. On screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. And then after that, you've got the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so don't go away. Welcome back to Oran Park. We just watched round 5 here in the Weekend Warriors. And in the end, David Gaspers took another victory in this season. Kane Halliburton, who was faster at Pocono, wasn't quite faster here, at least over the full race length. He certainly gave David something to think about for much of the race. Daniel Sadro climbed his way onto yet another podium, as he is wont to do. And Jason Perry just off the podium in fourth position. Michael Shaw takes P5, followed by Jerry McAreevy with an excellent 6. We wondered about Ryan Walker and his lack of qualifying. Well, he wound up in 7th in the end. Ian Haycox, our winner in the Spec 2, gets 8th overall. The last driver to finish on the lead lap was Brian Short in 9th. Aaron Vagley, the first car lap down, rounds out your top 10.
Bob Kern, 5th in the championship, 11th right here, 3rd place actually, or 2nd place, or 4th place, however you want to calculate that. Bob Kern, either way, 11th place, 1 lap down. Aaron Bradshaw, 12th. Nico Schuck took home 13th place, starting from 15th, so also a little bit of a increase in position there for him. Julio Forsolin, he did spin out of the last turn, last lap, like we saw at the background of Ian Haycox finishing. Jose Soria, first car not to finish this race, all the way down in 15th place. He was a little bit complaining about his own lack of durability in practice. It did come to haunt him in the race as well. Gary Walbot, he did finish the race 2 laps down in 16th. Seeloff, the next car to not finish today's race, is 17th, 15 laps down. Geoff Jacobson as well in 18th. Edward Doherty took home 19th place after running into troubles very early in the race. Bogdan Dumitrescu in 20th. A very sad ending for him on his lid. Sadly, not able to end today's race.
And our winner is ready to talk to us. David Gaspers joins us in the booth. David, this is a track that's not all that often run here in iRacing in any series. How much experience did you have here before today?
I had never seen it before Monday.
Oh,
but so far, I think it's one of the best tracks iRacing has for slower cars.
I have to agree completely. We were singing its praises before the broadcast ourselves and how much we enjoyed it too. And it seemed like you had quite a fight with Kane for at least the first part of this race. And you had a few side-by-side moments down into the first corner before it finally all fell apart for Kane.
Yeah, it is almost impossible to get someone out of a draft here. And in this case, especially. Also, I think over one lap, Kane was a bit faster than me. I was trying to stay safe over it. So, yeah, I don't think it would have been possible to get him out of the draft. So I tried to get him to do two whites. So he maybe made a mistake. And, yeah, in the end, he did a mistake there.
Now, we did not fail to notice the time that you abused your engine a little too much there on the front stretch. How much time did that cost you exactly when you started smoking? We did see that you came in immediately and took the spare car.
I think I lost about maybe 4 or 5 seconds. I don't know. I was totally confused because I didn't misshift. I had a normal upshift and suddenly my engine blew up. I hadn't had that happen to me in 2.5 years of driving this car.
What a time for it to happen then when you're leading a race. Thankfully, didn't cost you the win, but congratulations, and we hope to see you at Okayama.
Yeah, I'll be there.
That was our winner, David Gaspers, the number 23 car. And now Stefan is going to be talking to third place Daniel Sadro.
And Daniel, first question that pops up in my mind. How hyped were you as you saw Kane Halliburton being on your inside when you exited pit lane again?
Well, I was very, very excited. I didn't think I'd have anything for him, but it was very, very cool to have ended up right with him after the pit stop.
Now, how confident would you have been in a hypothetical scenario where you would have been able to stay ahead of Kane? How confident would you have been in that scenario of defending that second place from him?
Zero confidence, maybe less than that. No, Kane was probably the fastest. If he wasn't the fastest, he was the second fastest driver all day today, and well above half a second faster each lap than I was going to be toast no matter what.
Well, third place either way from fifth. That's a very good result.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks you guys, as always, for broadcasting.
Quick thought about next week. We're going to Okayama. How are you looking forward to that?
I'm looking forward to everything, I think, except for one corner. I don't know what the name is, but I like every corner but one. So it'll be.
Well, that's 99% of the tracks, so it should be good enough for you. Either way, thanks for talking to us, and thanks for a great race.
Thanks again, guys.
That was Daniel Sadler, third place finisher here today, and now Joe Peak talking with the man of the race.
Ryan Walker, who did not qualify, the only driver who didn't get a qualifying time in. I expect that was probably intentional, it seemed, Ryan, but I have to ask for your reasoning on a track like this where it's very, very tough to pass, why you didn't get one down.
Yeah, just the main reason for not qualifying was just I've not really had time to practice this week, so I kind of just decided just to play it safe and just start at the back of the field and just see how I got on. And yeah, I was quite surprised to finish in P7, but yeah, I'll take that considering I started at the back. And Oran Park is just, especially around that track, it feels rewarding.
I would think so. Not only P7, but you finished on the lead lap. So you proved yourself to be a quick adapter to what is a very tough track out there today. Next week, though, even though it's not nearly as difficult, it certainly has its detractors and its people who enjoy it. Is Okayama one you think you could do well in? I have to imagine you've raced it with it being free content.
Yeah, I've raced at Okayama a few times, but I think the only thing I've really raced around there is a Skip Barber. So I've got some experience in the track and that, but I've never raced around Okayama in the Spec race of Ford. So it's another track for me to learn. But I'm looking forward to next week, and it should be great as always.
We think so too. Today was great enough itself. Again, congratulations on your 7th place from the very tail end of the grid. That was a fine drive.
Right, thanks, Joe, and good job by you and Stefan on the broadcast.
Oh, thank you very much. That was Ryan Walker. Top 10 for him today, but that's going to close us out. Of course, we want to give a big thank you to our sponsor for the series, Sim Stickers. Again, if you want to check them out, you can find them at simstickers.co.uk. They make stickers that you can put on your button box, on your keyboard, all different sorts of stuff that you can help identify for yourself when you're sim racing. Very important for us here in the sim racing world. Also, thanks to iRacing for putting us on IESN. If you have not subscribed yet, there should be a button on their YouTube page that's big and red that says subscribe. Click it, and you get all of the Weekend Warriors in your YouTube feed. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen, and additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Stefan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, we are still staying off on the east side, Eastern Hemisphere, and going up to Japan for Okayama. That'll be Sunday, July 21st at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.